Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of Signs. If you haven't listened to part 1, you might want to do that because it's a good episode. We talked about all things signs, the weird and the wonderful. And today we're going to continue the conversation by talking about why don't I see signs? How can I get more? And many, many other questions. And I think Carol's a great one to start because she and I, and Anthony as well, know that a lot of people, because of what we do, ask us, well, I don't get signs from my loved one. Where are they? I've been asking and I don't get any signs. Yeah, that comes up a lot. And the first thing I tell people is you have to remember when you're in a state of grief, your attention is not the same as when you are feeling more whole. And we tend to be very desperate, right, for signs from our loved one that they're okay, that they've made it to the other side. But sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees because we're so busy trying to focus in on, I'm looking over here, or I haven't had a dream of them yet, or I never get any messages from them, instead of being open enough to say, oh, wait, I just had this random coin on the floor that wasn't there before. I wonder if that's a sign from my person. And so a lot of people too have a very specific thing that they're expecting the sign to be, and we have to be more open with it. We talked about that a little bit last time, of being open to the experience of it might be something you're not expecting. So it's important to not put any kind of parameters on what the sign's supposed to be and allow it to happen. And in the moment when something happens to you that draws your attention to your loved one, then know that's your sign. So you're not necessarily looking for it, but you're allowing it to happen. And I think what happens is people do try to go look, and they're kind of looking a little too hard, if that makes sense. And I know it's not class, but I still said, does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Please tell us more.
Some people I have found will kind of get a sign because they'll tell me later, but their experience is they've had a sign, but they've kind of thrown it away. That can't possibly be from them. I don't think that that's a sign because they wouldn't do that, or I don't think that it is. And it's really a self-doubt that has creeped in for people. So they're doubting that sign because it's really hard, maybe at first for them. And again, in this kind of altered state that they're in, this state of grief, it's hard to believe things because we're very much on shaky ground there. And when we are in that stage, and so we tend to be more doubtful as well.
Yeah, so there's that side of it, and there's the inner skeptic voice, like we were speaking about last time, right? That people have to kind of come to terms with as well.
Mm-hmm.
That even if you get that beautiful sign that you immediately know, that's my loved one, I know it is, and then don't be surprised then if you suddenly start puncturing holes in it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found interesting there as well, when you said, when you're looking for something so much, or you're looking for one type of sign, it's like the person who says, I had a conversation with them before they passed and they said that our sign would be a rainbow. And then I'm going around and I'm looking up all the time and I can't see a rainbow anywhere. So they're basically walking around looking up at the sky, looking for a rainbow. But yet the rainbow could be right in front of them in the car that's in front on a big sticker. The point is that it can come from anywhere. So just because you didn't see one in the sky at that time doesn't mean that your loved one still isn't honoring, let's say, what you kind of spoke about before they passed.
If you're so focused on your grief, you don't have the capacity or, the brain power to focus on something else. And so you might not even notice things that are put in front of you as a sign. So it does become kind of a vicious circle there of trying to heal and at the same time trying to get those signs to help you heal. So there is a little bit of that going on with people. Be open to and aware of things that are unusual or different too. So like you said with the rainbow, sure, the rainbow is a great sign, but it doesn't have to be a literal rainbow in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, it can be something very, very different. And it's the same way for any of the things. The ladybug might not be a ladybug. It might be a rock that's been painted like a ladybug. So they can come in different forms. They don't have to be actual literal things. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned like setting up signs beforehand, because I was thinking about that as well. And that does work. It does work. I hear it all the time. And it will come up in readings and all the time too. And people will say, oh my gosh, yes, we talked about the butterflies were going to be that sign and it was going to be the yellow butterflies and you'll know. But it doesn't have to be a yellow butterfly flies
across your face. And you go, oh, okay, hello. It can be somebody gives you a figurine of a little yellow butterfly. You see it on the side of a truck. You see it on a license plate.
You could be getting served in the shop by someone working behind the counter and they have a badge on, let's say, and it's a yellow butterfly for whatever reason. Like, to me, that's still your yellow butterfly sign. Pull this way. If you went there 10 minutes later, that person could be on their break. They're not going to be at the counter. Like, your loved one could have set the sequence of things so that you end up in the counter before that person left for their break so that you would see the badge and therefore they got to give you the sign. But it's trying to be aware of that, as you said. But if you're deep in grief, that's easier said than done.
Yeah, and you can actually even ask for signs too, which is kind of fun, you know, if you want to ask for something specific, like, oh, I really need to know you're around. I would like you to send me an elephant, like, or whatever it is, you know, then be
Is Dumbo getting delivered to my door, Tracy?
yeah, that yes. And then be open to it being, you know, an elephant bumper sticker, or not, maybe not an actual elephant, or maybe so, like, you know. So I think people don't know that they can also ask for signs. And that comes down to really being open and believing that it will happen. And that takes building trust, because if you believe it, if you in your soul believe it, you will experience it. But sometimes it doesn't happen overnight. So it's kind of a fun thing to kind of experiment with, asking for a sign of any particular kind, and then just be open to it being on a license plate or in a binder or at the grocery store or wherever, not necessarily in the literal sense, maybe.
I feel like signs can also be synchronicities, though. So let's take the yellow butterfly. And so you see a yellow butterfly, but then your friend talks about a yellow butterfly. And then you see a billboard with the yellow butterfly, and you're seeing it over and over. And it didn't have meaning to you beforehand, but you're seeing it over and over and over. So that's kind of one of those, to me, somebody's throwing something at you and saying, hey, pay attention to the yellow butterfly. And you might even have the awareness of, oh, well, who is this from? And it feels like my Aunt Betty, she loved butterflies. Hey, Aunt Betty, I think this is a sign from you. If it is, let me know. Send me another one. You know, you can set it up like that as well.
And what I do to poor Aunt Betty then is I'll change the sign on Aunt Betty. All right, Aunt Betty, no more yellow butterflies. We're going to send you a new one.
Why would you do that?
Aunt Betty knows what I'm like, so she'll know that, oh, Christ, that I will do that. But I like that as well in the sense that, like, you know, I'm playing with signs. And I'm playing with spirit and playing with whoever is sending the signs, like, I don't care. You know what I mean? So it's like that. As you send them, I'm like, I'm seeing all of them for the last 3 days. All right. Well, here's a challenge. Try and send me this, which is totally in contradiction to the other one. And then what happens? I suddenly start getting berated with this new sign. So spirit is well able to keep up pace. Anyway, I have no doubt. So, be as playful as you want.
Your new sign, Anthony, that I challenge you to find is chicken nuggets.
Oh, I was like, that'll smack me in the face tomorrow.
Like, why not make it something really random?
God, no, we couldn't have that. Way too common. But I'd ask for a sign that I'd be like, that's an easy one now. So because of that, you're getting a time limit. You have to bring that one to me now within 48 hours. That's another thing that people can ask for signs for, right? Is for guidance. Okay, it doesn't have to always be from loved ones and stuff. And, you know, young people, they mightn't have loved ones that pass in spirit that they're looking for signs for, but they're very much kind of focused on their life and where they want to go. And they very much would like to think spirit's involved in that. So then they're asking for the signs for that.
I get that prompt, that guidance from when I hear songs. And so I've had some kind of question in my mind, or, you know, whatever situation I need a little help with, some answers. And a song will come on and a particular verse will speak to me. And I, you know, because I'm very kind of literal in that way, I guess. And so it's giving me this literal message. If it's meant to be, it'll be, you know, that song might come on, for example. And then I'll go, okay, well, that means I just need to let go of that. And if it's going to happen, it does. If it's not meant to happen, it won't. And so that's kind of an example of a message I might get through songs.
Does the radio sing to you, Trace?
Yeah, I just feel like there is something bigger than us always, and there's always signs in everything, you know?
Because we're not alone, right?
Yeah, we're definitely not alone. There's something of a higher power, always around us and our loved ones or God, universe, all the things. So I just feel like there's signs in everything, like, and especially like if I quiet my mind, like my mind never shuts up. So if I'm able to quiet my mind, that's when I'm an idea about being more open. That kind of helps me be more open. So often I'll get signs when I'm doing mundane things or just walking or cleaning up the chickens or whatever, and then something will pop in, or even like a chicken will do something funny and it'll make me think like, oh, yeah, that makes sense now. Like, so I think the more aware you are, signs are everywhere. And I love that.
Tracy, you said a chicken doing a thing, and I swear to God, just before you said it, I pictured in my head a chicken turned around to you and saying, "Did you see that sign?"
That's kind of what it feels like.
So I was getting to myself. Let's say if I wasn't open to signs before, and then as I become more open to spirituality, I think the signs increase, right? You get more open to them.
I was going to say, just fair warning, the more open you are to signs, just be ready for the ones you get, because this is a very short, funny sign. So it was going to be New Year's Eve, and my hubby, because my dog barks, sorry. And
And he loves
loves
yeah,
that
dogs.
sign
exactly.
as
There
well.
he is. It's a sign. He's all for this story. So he loved animals. We had a lot of animals. And he always sends me random animal signs. So it started with the lizard, but there's been so many weird, funny things. And I said to him on New Year's Eve, I was pretty lonely, and I said, hey, you need to send me a specific sign. I need an animal, and I don't want to doubt it at all. It needs to be really obvious. So I'm bringing groceries in New Year's Eve, and what happens? A kitten runs in my front door and jumps in my arms. And the kicker is, how does that happen? Right? So it's a sign. But also, as she's putting her whiskers on the camera here, I'm allergic to cats, but I'm not allergic to her. Like, so I could immediately cuss at him, like, okay, well, that's really obvious, but I don't really need a cat, but because I'm allergic. And then I found out, like, I've had to get shots because I'm so allergic to cats. And she sleeps in my room. I'm not allergic to her. So it was kind of like a double barrel sign, like, you need a fuzzy thing to cuddle. And don't worry, you won't be allergic. Here you go. You wanted it obvious. So, more open you are, those things can happen because cats don't just run in your house on New Year's Eve.
All right, with that, I'm just retracting my elephant request.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. I remember, that's what I mean. You got to be open to maybe the not so obvious or the dog barking being a sign, right? But like my husband, he's so funny. Like recently we went to get pizza. Well, my son and I went out. We don't get out much together. And so we were out and we're like, what do we feel like eating? And oh, pizza sounds good. Well, we always had pizza on Sundays when Joe was alive, and he was very particular about his pizza. So we're kind of at this farmer's market thing, and I said, I think that's a pizza place over there. So we walked towards it, and as we're walking towards the building, the pizza place's name is called St. Joe's. And I just started crying, right? And then his favorite number is 23. So when we paid the bill, it was $23.23. That was a really cool sign for me. Like, I'm always amazed at the wonderful signs he shows, but it was great because my son was able to experience it, and he's not as like woo woo, if you will. He's a 28-year-old guy. He's like, okay, mom, but he can't even deny that. And so yeah, just be open. They're just wonderful, and they are just for you. If it means something to you, then that's amazing. And the more you allow it and trust it, the more wonderful it can be. And you can really feel your people, or support from God and the universe.
Both of you told stories there, and then let's say those signs were going to be meaningful to you, and no one was going to diminish how meaningful that sign was to you in that experience. So that's important to remember.
Right, right. If you believe it, if you feel it, it's for real, and it's only for you anyway. So it doesn't matter what somebody else thinks or says. I do have people come to me and ask me, "This thing happened, or I found that thing. Was that a sign from my loved one?" Because somebody else has made them doubt it. And so my answer is always like, "But how did it make you feel? It doesn't matter how it made somebody else feel, or whether they believed it or not. How did it make you feel?"
So tell me this, what other ways do you get signs from your loved ones? For example, what about dreaming?
Yeah, so not everybody's a big dreamer.
I'm not.
Well, and I know Tracy isn't either, but I actually am. But not everybody is a dreamer. And that's why I want to talk about it first. Yes, you can get visitations, I would say, and messages in your dreams from loved ones and from spirit guides, helpers, God. But not everybody does dream. And when you're grieving, especially, your sleep is so interrupted when you're grieving. Very common. People can't sleep well for obvious reasons. And so it does take a restful sleep to even get to a dreaming state. So if you are grieving and you're not sleeping well, don't put any pressure on yourself to find your loved ones in your dreams, because you're not actually physically able to get to that dreaming state unless you get a certain amount of sleep. So that's one reason a lot of people right at first, when they've lost somebody, don't see them in their dreams, but other people do. And we're all different. Some of us are dreamers, some of us are not. And for me, I did have my son come very quickly in dreams, but he never talked. So then it was the frustration of, but why aren't you talking? I see you, I love it, and I still do. I figured out later that it was, for me, like more of a telepathic communication, the way mediumship is. It's, spirit doesn't have a voice box anymore. So in my dreams, he didn't have a voice either. Other people do hear, there are people talking in their dreams. So again, we're all going to be different and experience it differently. But definitely take that as a sign from your loved one if you dream about them. I do think it's visitations. I do think they come on purpose. And I do think they do it to give us comfort. If you're not one who gets loved ones in your dreams, just know that they come in a variety of ways. And we've already talked about a lot of those ways that they come.
I know when people sleep that we have our REM cycles, okay? And when you wake up in the morning, the dreams you're remembering are from those later REM cycles. You're not going to remember the dreams that you had in those earlier cycles in the night. Then I had an idea one day. I was like, I wonder, it's on my list, by the way, I'll check when I go back. But I wonder, when you wake up and you have the first thought in your head, let's say, is of a loved one that has passed, I have a feeling that is as much like getting a visit in a dream as we'd say waking up and remembering a full dream. It's almost like that was your signpost that, let's say, you met in dreamland or whatever, and you're not going to remember that. But the way you know that happened is you woke up and the first thing you thought about was them, or you saw their smiling face or something. Now you're awake and you think that's not a dream, it's not a visitation. But to me, that is the signpost that they did visit and you did have your visitation.
And then some people will feel, actually, dreamer or not dreamer, as you're waking up, you're still in a state of an altered state of mind because you've been asleep and you're not fully awake yet. So that's kind of a twilight zone, I call it. And the same thing with falling asleep. And a lot of times people will experience quick sign or a feeling of my loved one is here because your mind is more relaxed and you're not necessarily thinking or being in your grief state or overthinking the situation. And so for me, sometimes as I woke up in the morning, I could feel the presence of somebody sitting on the bed near me, wherever it was. And as I'm waking up, feel them getting up off the bed, to the point where I'd look over and see if it was my husband and he's not even in the room. I'm like, okay. So I took that as a sign, like my loved one's comforting me during that sleep when it's hard to rest, and, giving me the idea of helping me rest when I couldn't do it on my own. And so I very much felt that was him as well. So that's a sign of visitation. And I've heard that story from other people too. So just be aware of those are really good times to feel your loved ones too, if you can't do it in your sleep.
When I was falling asleep, it was exactly the same as well. That was the only time in that semi-state where, like that, I got up and looked because I thought that someone had sat down on the bed next to me. But immediately as someone done it, I felt like my father was in the room.
Mm-hmm.
But so much so then that all of that hit me at once, and I literally had to sit up to see, was my father in the bloody room sitting on the bed? That kind of thing.
I was thinking about like the subtlety of signs
Mhm.
and the boldness of signs, and then there's a mix, and like there's not one size fits all.
Well, yeah, we did talk a little bit about that in terms of people expect all signs to be huge. They expect to feel somebody sitting on the bed, but it's not always like, so it can very much be there's a tickle on your face and you feel like, oh, there's a hair in my face. It feels like a spider web, something like that. And you brush it off literally because you don't think that it can be a sign from your loved one. But we can feel our loved ones and get signs from them physically too. So if you have goosebumps, sometimes people will feel that. Or if you've had a thought of somebody that you love and all of a sudden your hair stands on end or you hear ringing in your ears or something like that, take that as a sign as well that they are near, because your awareness, your attention went to your loved one. They're right there with you all of the time. And as your awareness turns your attention to, let's say, Tracy, she thinks of Joe, and then all of a sudden she has some goosebumps. She can know that, yeah, sure, that's him nearby, just kind of giving her that little touch. So it doesn't always have to be something that you see.
Well, I have like dog noise in and out, so I'm kind of like, can I talk now? I don't know. You might start barking. Well, so we've talked about so many different signs and the ways to receive them and how to be open to them. And I feel like this conversation could go on forever because again, go back to the beginning, there are no rules. It's very personal to the person. It's very personal to your perspective, and don't let anybody poo-poo it for you. Like that's, I think that's a good thing to leave on. So I hope you enjoyed our conversation today and my dog barking. And yeah, we'll see you
We had
next
an extra
time.
member at the table.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Puppy member. No poo-poo, though, from Puppy.
No poo-poo from Puppy. That's probably why he's fussing. He's like, you've been sitting too long. It's time for me to do my business.
Oh, what a segue. Poop, the sign that everybody understands.
And with that,
That's a sign. I need to go. I need to go because he needs to go. So,
Bye, everybody.
Slod.
bye.